Welcome to the first ever episode of Foosball Pioneers of Canada. I'm Richard Tench, and this is Peter Tielens. Peter, who are we talking to today?
Well, we're talking to somebody you've probably heard of, a local player who's certainly a legend in the Northwest and is known throughout Canada at this point. A very accomplished player and someone who's beautiful to watch and great to talk to, Mitch Jang.
And now, without further ado, let's talk to Mitch.
Well, before we get to that, I just want to know how my hair's looking.
So, Mitch, you've been playing a long time.
Yes.
When did you first play? Do you remember the first time you saw a foosball table?
Yeah, there was a place that had pinball machines in it. It was more a cafe than anything, but it had a foosball table in it. It was a covered table, and it was very popular, more popular than pinball. And I always used to watch them play. They wouldn't let me play. I was too young. I must have been about 11. And I'd watch the older guys play, but I really, really wanted to play. And when they would give me a chance to play, I just really loved it. So that's probably, 11, 12 years old. That would be 72, 73.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Is this on Commercial Drive? Or?
No, this is on Fraser Street, right across from John Oliver.
Oh, okay.
And down the street there's a pool hall that had a foosball table. They were all steel men on rods, right? They weren't coming through, and that's where I started playing a lot there. And it was quite a rivalry. Everyone wanted to be good and win and everything. So, yeah, that's where I really started playing, really like it. So I played there until about 77, 78. And then kind of somehow I got onto other places had green tops. They're called $250,000 tables, forerunner to the brown top, and blue tops, of course. And I got a hold of them and were impressed, of course, like, wow, what are these tables? And then finally got brown tops, thick handles, the newest thing. Probably the most playable table ever made. You can do everything on it.
Even over pro soccer? Maybe pro soccer was a little bit too grippy for some shots?
Yeah. I prefer pro soccer, but for most it was very, very playable table.
Yeah.
Do everything. And that was in 1980 when they first, I think, came to Vancouver. And then I started playing on those. But there were experienced players back then, a lot more experience than me. I had some quick shots and I could fool these guys and do some stuff they'd never seen before. But, they were passing and shooting pull shots. And so, yeah, I learned a lot back then.
Yeah, so were you, did you go with friends or did you, I know that your brother Nick played, but did he start playing after you played or?
Yes, he did. Seriously, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just wondering because it's kind of like when I started playing, I was introduced by someone else and I was playing with someone else. I was just wondering if there was any friends that you had that were playing or
not so much, Well, Jocko played.
Yeah.
And he started in the pool hall with me as well. And we graduated to the better tables together. And very similar styles he shot it back into. So and he was really good as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. So then
is he still around?
Yes, he is. Yeah. He seen my 5-bar. He was flipping through some foosball stuff, and he seen my 5-bar, and he says, "I recognize that 5-bar," and it was mine.
Yeah. Always liked Jocko.
But when did you start playing tournaments? When were there small tournaments in that pool hall?
No, there weren't. The first tournament, the real tournament I played on was a place called Circuit City. It was in Richmond. Pete Vicze, Don McEwen, Steve Vicze, all the old timers were there.
What about Miller? Mike Miller, was he there?
He wasn't into it yet. And Steve Vicze ended up winning it. And it was my first introduction to tournament foosball. And I played with this young kid who dragged me out because he had known about tournaments and wanted to play with me. So we did. And we did well. We didn't come in the money, but I thought we both did really well for a couple of, greenhorns. And opened my eyes to what real foosball is about. And
is this Draw Your Partner?
No, it was Bring.
Oh, okay, so it's Bring. So
it was pretty serious. I was surprised how serious everybody was about it. When you first got,
it's just
I was still saying nice shot to my opponent when he'd score, and my partner said, "Don't say nice shot," and I kept saying, "Don't say nice shot." Yeah, and that's where I met Pete Vicze, who became my partner for the next 10 years, and we won a lot of tournaments together. So he kind of took me under his wing. He'd been down the States and played in the World Championship. So it was a good thing running into him.
Yeah, for sure. You guys were quite a team, and for many years we loved watching you, right? And but like partnerships, they kind of, it's hard to play with the same partner for a long time, right? But I want to go back to, I remember hearing about tournaments at the P&E.
There weren't tournaments at the P&E. They just had 2 tables there.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to actually go and hustle foosball. Guys would all, for some reason, I didn't have to try playing bad, but for some reason people would always want to come and play me for money.
Yeah.
Not a lot, $1, sometimes it'd be $5, but yeah. So, yeah, and I'd do that. I'd go down there and do that all day long. Yeah, because I just loved to play as well. It was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, for sure.
So even when I wasn't playing money matches, I was constantly playing. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah. You were saying, you're going to say?
That's actually, after that tournament in Richmond where I first met Pete, that's where I ran into him again. And him and I started playing some singles, 10, 15 games, not money matches, but just playing. And then he says, hey, you should start playing. And that's how we became partners, actually, when I ran into him down there.
Wow.
Because that's only 2 weeks of the year.
Right.
Yeah, but I was there every day. And I'd hear this guy, he wants to play $5 a ball always. He's coming here. These things never develop, but I always hear these people saying this guy's coming down to challenge me.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, there's always people that are the best in their bar.
$5 a ball. This guy's going to pay $5 a ball.
The amount of times that I've heard, I won the BC championships, right? It's like, yeah.
The real common story back then was, I was at the World Championships, and the whole game is played above the table. Because someone back then on the $1 million table was the first.
Yeah.
The whole, even the passing is that was their thing. Oh man, you guys are nothing, man. These guys play above the table, and that was the story. That was the common story back then.
All right, so you already asked the swearing question, man. That was a great question.
Well, it was something that always struck me, because everybody else is saying these, kind of sort of swear words, or a spin on it, and you would just say, gosh darn it, and
it was called on tour, it was called so stringently, anything close, like you didn't have to be like the F word or anything like that, anything really derogatory, and they'd call you on it.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I was thinking about, because I remember when I started playing and traveling, is that the players tend, in different areas, they play different.
Very much so. Well, there's a legendary TS story that the first, probably haven't heard it, the first tournament, nationwide tournament in the States, and all the styles collided, Louisiana Shuffle. Before, people used to stand still on the D, just stand there, and then shoot. And there's guys from Louisiana, they used to move them in, and they were effective, so they called it Louisiana Shuffle. And all the regions all collided at that one tournament, and it really pushed foosball forward. So that was true when I first went to Kamloops. They used to have something called the Intercity. It was Kamloops, Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. And that's when I first ran into guys from Calgary and Edmonton, guys like Doug McCarthy and
Brian Lepke.
Lepke was there, yeah. Tony. This is actually Lee Murray. These guys. Lee Murray was like the big shot there.
Yeah,
and
for
so
sure.
forth. And yeah, and you could see the Calgary style was a very aggressive style, and the Edmonton was not quite. That's where Lee Murray was from. They were not quite as aggressive. Like these guys really got after it, the Calgary boys, and ours wasn't as aggressive, and you could really see different styles and so forth. And then even more so when I first started going to Seattle and noticing how rough they play. Yeah. And Rich and I were talking about how well they executed. Compared to us, we were all talent and brains. As far as I'm concerned, I thought we were smarter than them, and I thought we were more talented than them. But they could execute their shots so perfectly, so hard, that they could blow you away. So yeah, it's an eye opener, and then and you got to make adjustments.
Yeah. So when you started playing, did you have mentors, or was it just you learning or developing, or was it the teamwork with Pete, or what?
I would call Pete my first mentor.
Yeah.
He gave me more instruction, probably more than anyone. Mm-hmm. He didn't really sit me down and say, you got to do this, but he would say in a match, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And maybe this is what you got to look for.
Yeah.
And that helped a lot.
I think that is the best way to give advice sometimes, is because you can't tell the person what to do. You just explain what's going on.
Yeah, that's what he would do.
Yeah.
He's pretty good at it. And later when I started playing with Morgan Harris down there, he was more experienced than I too, and he would do that too, but even more subtly. And he'd usually actually wait for me to ask him. Like, I'm getting blocked really bad and something. What do you think's going on here? He says, well, it looks like he's doing this. Looks like he's doing this, and he'd show me. Looks like he's doing this. That would help.
Yeah.
And just his Zen approach. He was very, existentialist foosball player.
Yeah.
And, I'm sometimes too hard on myself and taking it too serious or something, and not executing properly because of it, tightening up. And he would...
It's funny, like I noticed the difference between Pete. Like, Pete generally was a pretty calm player, but Morgan was fiery.
He was.
Right? He was very into it, and he's sweating buckets.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. He was a sweater. Right?
Yeah, there's a big difference between someone saying, here's what they're doing, here's what I'm seeing, and here's what you should do.
Yeah.
And the first one's a lot more useful.
Yeah, it's telling someone to do it really doesn't work. I mean, we've all done it though. I played with a lot of rookies and saying, do this, and it didn't work. And over the years, I've learned to, maybe try this.
I think it's harder giving goalies advice than it is a forward.
Than a goalie giving a forward advice?
No, I think that it's, as a goalie, you can see the other goalie, and you can say, okay, he's doing this movement, and when he does this hole will open up, right? Whereas telling someone how to block someone else is so difficult.
I agree. I think Rich and I were discussing that too. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, the whole idea of that shuffle and the randomness is almost academic in some ways. You need a way to express it, and they have to understand it. Mm-hmm. So, Mitch, your 5-bar. So let's shift gears a little bit.
Yes. So
I got to say, you're a person who's very careful about not necessarily revealing everything in their mind in terms of their technique.
Right.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay, but we're going to ask you to go ahead and tell us. So when you're 5-bar, what would you say? What are the big things that you try to achieve in successfully executing your passes?
Well, for the past probably about 20 years, it's probably my downhill. I make sure that if he leaves me the downhill, I take it. And I do it by, I don't know if you've seen me, but I'm not looking at the ball. I get the ball to roll the way I want it to, which you guys both know that's very important to me, getting the ball to roll at the right speed, and so I can get in behind it, know where I am with the ball, and now I can look right at the man's rod, right at the wall. So if it's there, I can take it.
That's when you'll take it.
And once I establish that I can take that when it's open, now I got him guessing, and I can play all off of that.
See, I think with your 5-bar, you spend a lot of time behind the ball.
Yes.
And I think that's, if someone asks me advice, that's what I give them. I say, you got to stay behind the ball a lot, because then they start they're not really sure when you're actually going to pass. But I kind of think that when you're doing that behind the ball, I think that what I think you're doing, tell me if I'm wrong, is that you're doing little fakes and seeing how the player reacts, and then storing that for later use.
That just comes all subconsciously. Like, I don't have to make it that's what I'm doing, but I can see that all along. That if he's sitting in front of me or not, and if I jerk down, that if he's gonna react.
Yeah.
But I say it this way to my partners or people I'm trying to tell, that when I'm doing it, I'm making them work that whole time I'm behind them. See, if I pull it and go to the wall and wait for it, I'm not making them work as the ball goes across.
He's relaxing until it comes to him.
And then he can react to my movement. And I can't remember, I was stressing that to make him, I'm watching these guys doing the 5 and saying, he's not making them work there. He's not making them work there because he's doing a bit of a stick, but he's not behind it. The ball is rolling free and he's in no balance to, to pass.
One thing I always found difficult about your 5 is that you love to bat the pass through to your 3. Like if the opposition is passing and you have a read on where they're going to go, quite often you just bang it forward and catch it on your 3. That's really disheartening for the.
It is. I learned that on $1 Million. I learned that off Steve Vicze, actually.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day, back in the 80s, Steve Vicze had a bit of a brush, but most of us did a chip. Now that's just calling to get kicked back at you. You pull it to the wall, you chip up, you wait up for it, and you just knock it back. So that's where I learned to do that. And then I learned to do it against brushes and sticks as well. Yeah. You might as well, if you're going to be standing in the way anyways, you might as well kick it back at him. And it becomes natural after years and years when you kick it back that
you know where it
is.
Yeah.
When you're confident, you know where they're going to go. You're pretty sure where they're going to go.
Yeah. You see, all foosball, a lot of 5-baller though, especially is balance. Is your balance right to make this sort of pass? Like you're not balanced. I know you can't pass right now because you're not standing right or something, or you're not behind the ball properly, but you cannot pass the ball right now. So I can be on the wall and wait and do anything, right? Because you can't hit it through even the lane because you're not there. I do that to Jerry all the time. He's not around the ball. I can tell he's got no balance, right? And we don't consciously think of these things, but it's there. We know from playing so many years that this is what's going on. Same with the shot, we got you lean over, lean in, and for different shots, and so balance is a lot.
Like everybody has something that they are really feel good about, like you played really well, or you overcame some obstacle, or just kind of like memories that really strike you that you're never going to forget. Do you have any of those? Do you recount something like that? Or?
Are you talking like huge victories?
Yeah, or just something that was that you felt was very big. Like I know we went to Calgary and and you played well there, and going down to Seattle, I used to watch you all the time. And
probably going down to Seattle, just the experience you gained. When I was first, well, not really first starting, but whenever I'd go down to Seattle, I'd come back a better player. I really would, and I'd tell people that they were reluctant to go to Seattle because they didn't think they would win, even the Thursday draws or the draws they have. I said, go down there, you'll come back a better player. And for sure, that had an effect on me because the styles different, the level of foosball was higher there. Yeah, and one that really stuck with me, we won a huge, well, it wasn't a huge money tournament, but the players that we had to play was huge. Two guys, Elwood Makakaw and Dave McQueenie.
Yeah, for sure.
That year, they came second in the World Championships. They were beaten by Fury and Lott. And it was like the biggest tournament ever at the time. Yeah. So we played them and we won, and that really shot me off to being a real foosball player. Yeah.
I can remember, we quite often drove down to Seattle and played and came back, and there's always fun times. I remember one time me and Moy and you, we got a hotel. We were staying there, and
car broke down. Yes.
Yeah. The people you mentioned, what was it?
Makakaw and McQueenie.
Yeah. So they were legends, but they also, even later, they were still tough to play. But your
major rival down there was Chesborough.
He was, yes. Him and goalie was Paul Tibbets.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Tibbets, I don't know, he's not really known nationally, but he was the first guy ever really to block me. Like my back pin, I would score on everybody basically, really well. And then I played him for the first time in Saddle, and this guy started blocking me, and it really shook me up because it never happened to me before. He's giving me a zone race. He's showing me things, but he's not a lot, but he's showing me things. But he's kind of racing me there. Or, I don't know what he was doing, but he's kind of blocking me, and that was a real eye opener for me because I don't think I won that tournament because of that. And then I realized foosball is not going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be.
So did you was there something in his style that you ended up figuring out? Because I know he was a tough goalie. I played against him. I watched him. Were you just the different shots you were using? You had to select a set of shots to do on him, or?
Yes. I didn't realize it was a zone race. Back then it was either a zone or a race, they shuffle him and end up in a place, or race a guy in a dead race. It was kind of both of those. And that got me. And he was really fast at racing, but he didn't look fast. It wasn't like he'd show you long and then race long. He'd show you a bit of long and a bit of middle, and whichever way he went, he's watching my balance too. So he's a master at watching balance. If I'm over this, I'm going middle.
It sort of reminds me of Harry, except
that's the style he was really good at.
Yeah,
Harry's not bad at it. Harry can stop you too.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he's playing on these things, shot selection. Smart goalies, they'll play in shot selection. I went long 3 times, and I'm going middle this time. So he was smart. He had it all, and I hadn't run into a person who had it all before.
Yeah.
So in the end, it helped my game. In the end, sometimes I'd score on him pretty well, and sometimes he'd still block me.
Yeah, and then.
Hey, Mitch, you played poker professionally, right?
Yes.
Is there anything that you carry over, like any strategy, any way of thinking that works in foosball that you apply in poker, or vice versa, or are they just completely different?
I couldn't name it. But it's there. I used to wrestle too in high school, and that's when I was really playing a lot of foosball as well. And I realized that to fake a hold on somebody and get them to move, and then I can use a counter move. And I learned that from foosball. Like, man, I'm faking these guys out, and they're moving. I'm going to try that in wrestling, and it worked. Now, I was never a great wrestler, but
But similar strategy.
Yeah.
And your ability to read other players, read your opponent and what they're doing, that must come into play in poker.
It does, yeah. Yeah, when I was at my best in poker, I had really great instincts. Yeah, I had really great. And as I got better, it was all basic pressure strategy. It was just pressure strategy. Wasn't counting on my instincts as much, but they were still there and still helped me.
How about nerves or keeping your level high? Like, how do you be so consistent?
I get nervous. I'm nervous. Once I start playing, not so much. But before the match, it's just like I get nervous, and sometimes on a big goal, you get sweat ball and something. And there's a timeout. I feel it. I don't know. I just go there, try my best to execute. I don't really use any calming techniques or anything like that. I just go up there and kind of think about what I'm going to shoot and try executing it. Yeah, not really any calming techniques.
Okay, so a little bit different. Is it if you had a player or someone who you were mentoring, what kind of advice would you get them to, besides the actual execution of the shot, what kind of mental advice would you give them?
Well, I don't know about calming because, like I said, I never did it for myself. But I used to tell when I go down with other Canadians, and they'd be in a big match with them, I'd say, "You're smarter than them. You're smarter than them," and that would always be my phrase. And let's use our brain, because we're not going to out execute the Americans. You're not gonna out execute Spreedeman. It's impossible. It's everything perfect, right? You're gonna have to outthink him. You're gonna beat him. You're gonna have to outthink that man. One, and then the hard part.
I'm just going to tell a personal story for 1 sec. I was down at the World Championships, and Ling Pendley and the guys running the tournament said, "Hey, we're doing this story. You're from a different country. Will you talk to the reporter, right?" And so the guy's asking me about the game, and then I start saying, "Well, the Americans are all about hitting the ball hard and doing the dead man, and I think the Canadian players are smarter, right?" And then he goes, "Well, who's finishing first?"
Granted. Well, that's because they hit it so much better than we do. But nowadays I see our guys, some of our guys from back east, and Cam, and they're hitting it, really well too. So, matter of time before I think we're to win world championships, open doubles, open singles. Matter of time.
Yeah.
You're saying the style of play was quite different because a lot of the regions had never seen anybody else play, right?
Yes.
In the old days.
Yes.
And so over time, I guess with YouTube and all that, people all start to see all these different styles.
True. Yeah. True. Yeah. And they're playing each other more.
Traveling.
Everybody knows everybody now. Funny thing is, back then, when we'd go down there, the people we'd play against were our enemies. Like, we weren't friendly with them. We were mean to them, and they were mean to us. We were the only guys from Canada. We were the only guys from other than the United States. The Europeans weren't even there yet. So, we weren't friendly with them at all. We were real rivals, and we didn't like each other. We'd argue and we'd trash talk. Well, I wouldn't trash talk too much, but we'd argue a lot, and a lot of hard feelings and stuff. And only after 3 or 4 years of playing the same guys, you get a respect for each other, and you start, hey, which is good. But today I think it's a little more sportsmanship oriented.
Well, definitely nowadays.
A little friendlier,
yeah. I remember, I think people nowadays don't know how much jarring and stuff like that players had to put up with, right?
Well, Seattle was a great example of that. It was the jar capital of it, because those pro soccers they were light tables too, and the floor had a rug on it, bogeys and stuff and whatever else, and man, those tables were rocking. And there's no official. No one called officials back then. Only in the finals they'd be official, but during the thing,
there'd always be a discussion between the players.
Ken always used to complain about that.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, those laser.
What do you think some of the pivotal moments or milestones for the development of foosball in Canada are?
In the past?
Yeah.
I imagine getting those brown tops up here. The first brown tops.
Yeah.
Because I remember there's a place on Kingsway Street, it was called the Four Seasons, and I went by there and there's like 10 people playing foosball on this one table. And I went to take a look, and it was a brown top, and I guess it had just arrived, but and these were all like more experienced than me, guys playing on it, and it from there, guys like Jim Trotter and like that, he placed some up here. He got a Gaslight Billiards and started running weeklies and stuff, and it really moved the game along, because before that we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know to pass and to shoot ball shots and so forth. So that really progressed the game. And we found out that going down in Seattle is an option. Which we didn't know before. It's like we just thought playing a pool hall and stuff.
So you got a sheet of paper there, and you got some names on there, or you wrote down some details. What did you actually write down?
Just some names from the past and so forth. Just a little bit of influence guys, Jack Lentee, Foz, Chaz. I went down there and battled them so many times and learned from the 5 bars and learned what big time foosball is all about and so forth. So yeah, and learned, that's the first place where I learned that girls can play too. Before that, up here there was no girls playing at all. Like they wouldn't touch the table, but running Chris Brazel, Julie Sims, I seen them playing. It's like, wow, man, they can play. So yeah, that had an effect on me. So we when we go to Kamloops for those tournaments, we had encouraged girls to play because they had mixed doubles and stuff. So I got into mixed doubles and stuff.
Oh,
yeah. Grace Murray would come down there as well from Edmonton.
Excellent player.
Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lee and Grace came down and put on a clinic for us.
She beat me and my partner in the inner city.
She shot really good bank shots, right?
Oh, she did. Yeah.
NTS.
I was kind of the young hot shot, so I thought I had my way. And I know Lee Murray is better than me, but
well, maybe not anymore, but at the time.
yeah.
Right?
But I thought, well, he's got a girl for a partner, and I always stuck and shred girls, just ridiculous. And so we played him in the finals in the city. It was Edmonton against Vancouver, and they beat us. And she blocked me and scoring and whatever else. And I took it hard. I really took it hard because it's one of those things like when you go to the Worlds these days, the whole country gets behind you, or the whole city, all of Vancouver is behind us, and all Edmonton is behind them, and it was a big, every goal, everyone was cheering, and they beat us, and I took it hard. I took that one home with me, yeah.
It was always nice, like when we tour or go down to Seattle, and you see a match, someone else from Vancouver playing, and you go there and you try to give them some advice and give them support.
Definitely.
And, yeah, it's great.
Definitely.
Yeah. What do you think your legacy for the Canadian foosball community is?
I don't know, kind of a pioneer. I was really the first one to start going down there on any kind of regular basis, and I think maybe showing the Americans that Canadians can play and they can win down there. Before that they didn't think at all. Funny story is I was a pro, and I was at Johnny Lott's tournament in LA, and I wanted a sandbag semi-pro, and so I come up to him. He's taking interviews, and I say, "Can I play? He says, "Well, I can't see your name anywhere." I said, "Well, he says, where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Canada." He goes, "You're in." So, and then I'm 3 up in the winners, just destroying everybody. And all of a sudden, there's a big crowd of people. They were looking at me and pointing at me. And they all come marching over and saying, "You can't play, man. You're a pro." And all this. And so they threw me out. But I got my entry fee back.
Too funny. So that was on Johnny Lott's table?
I believe that was a striker.
Yeah, striker table.
Because Lott is the guy who was taking entry fees.
Yeah. I can remember you and Pete went down, right?
That was Pete and I.
Yeah, and I remember Tim, Earl, and I went down and we played on a striker tournament a couple of years after that, right? But,
I like them.
I found them too grippy. I hurt my wrist on that table.
They were grippy, but that's why I liked them though.
Yeah,
you know me.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was mostly backpin that you shot through your career, or when did you switch to the push kick?
On the Tornadoes, I couldn't really get a good backpin going. But I always shot it off and on anyways, like never really seriously in a tournament, but I started off when I was a kid shooting it, and it never really left me. I probably shot it better back then when I was a kid because I was loose and that's all I knew. Now it's like, my whole body's like, forget it, right?
Yeah.
Then on Tornadoes I started shooting it, and I had some success, and it's a hard grind, the push kick though, for sure.
A lot of energy taken. Yeah. Are there any Cam wants to kind of like learn more about the history? Is there any players that you haven't mentioned that you think should be included, that we should look up, or?
Well, when I mentioned Doug McCarthy and Brian Leckie, that was the first wave. After that, from Calgary were guys like Sanj and Joey Ramjag and guys like this, the Flynn brothers, and which was kind of the second wave, a little bit before you guys came. Yeah, this was kind of late 80s, maybe, late 80s. I'm not sure. BC, not really that much. I mean, kind of Jerry kind of appeared on the scene a little bit.
Well, there was Reed Abel, right?
Reed Abel, Mike Miller, like you're saying, they kind of appeared on the scene around then too, around late 80s, Well, actually, Reed's been around. He went to Kamloops, so he is early 80s as well.
And you played in the I think it was a 5,000 or 10,000 tournament that was put on by Tournament Soccer in Vancouver. Did you play?
I didn't play in that.
I know
At
Reed
the Sheraton.
did. Yeah, I know Reed played
he did.
Yeah.
Wood Macaca won that.
Yeah. Wow.
Late 70s, that one, then maybe.
Probably 79.
Yeah.
Maybe even before. I think maybe earlier than that.
Yeah.
What I really wanted to ask you too is that one of the best things that ever happened to us was, we're playing like on Granville Street and stuff like that. Then the place closes down. Then we go over to Denny's and we're there for 2 or 3 hours and we're talking foosball where, Pete Vice's eating dessert before he has his meal and all this other, it's just fun stuff, right? And traveling in groups. Like I remember the Calgary tournament, you and Chesborough, Ricky Benitez, and I think Pete Vice, you guys went in a motorhome to Calgary.
That was actually Jocko.
Oh, that was Jocko.
Yeah.
Huh.
Jocko and Kevin Yates.
Yeah, Kevin Yates.
He's a foosball player.
Yeah. I remember him.
Yeah. We all met up there. Jocko and I almost got into a fight there, I think.
Between you two, or
Pardon?
Between the two of you?
Yeah, him and I,
Ex-wrestler from high school, right? Don't rile Mitch up. It's pretty hard to rile you up, though.
I can't remember what it was. He was saying I was slop. It wasn't he saying I was slopping my way to victory or something. It's something awful he said. Like, and I
slop. What a bad word.
So, Mitch, is there anything else that we didn't really bring up that you really would like to talk about, or?
Well, I think it's probably about 89 or something like that. Tim started shooting a snake pin, which we had never seen. Which
and
is
this
one
is
thing.
sorry, Kim.
Tim.
Oh, Tim did. Oh, was Tim the first snake shooter in town?
He was. And I used to pass him from the far side, which hadn't been up here, so he was pretty effective with it. And then a man brought in this girl with purple hair and lots of enthusiasm, just a rookie, and her name was Moya. It was Pete's new girlfriend, and wasn't long before...
She was Moya Regan at the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long before she was getting up there and giving me all that I can handle, and a few years later she was beating me. So, a little thing, things like that, and Tim stayed the same level. Had to get that in.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, Mitch, like the other day, I was sitting here and someone posted on the group a video of Cam in the park, and he was doing this $100 challenge against anybody who comes up, right? And I was sitting there with a smile on my face, and it's something I always wanted to do. And then I started to think about tonight, and I was getting emotional, like thinking about Moya, thinking about you, and I just want you to know that I just appreciate you as how you carry yourself, and your play. It's always been so awesome to watch. Like I told you this at the first Hall of Fame in Ottawa. I said the three most things that I love watching is Moya's 5-bar,
Something else.
And watching Terry Moore's 5-bar, and watching you shoot pin shot on the pro soccer table. I had to add that I like watching Federico as well. But definitely those are the things that mesmerizing. And the way that you would pick middles and do a reverse middle, and you had the ability to go from one side with the pin shot all the way to the other side, and the nets were smaller. It was harder to score, you've brought a lot of joy to me, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Yeah, just I don't know, just love the game. Just love the game. Try to get better. I mean, I think that's why we all fall in love with the game, is because you start out, can't do anything, and piece by piece, you just, hey man, I hit a little push shot, I went around someone, my pull shot, I'm passing, and piece by piece, you just get, and you're dying to get back on the table,
Yeah.
And if you start winning, and you start winning tournaments, and I see this a lot today, people handle themselves with a lot of class these days. Back in the day, I've seen people, they weren't really being classy about winning. Today, Canadians are good about that, but it's just nice to see that.
It's a different scene now, isn't it? It's really evolved, even in the last 20 years, let alone back.
I know. Sorry for interrupting. I noticed a big difference between when I was running the big tournaments in BC and when Cam started, because a lot of the players are a lot better behaved, and it's more of a community now than it
I think
was.
so. And maybe it's a trend worldwide. I don't know. Because you show up at Vegas or wherever, and people are pretty good there.
And
in general.
Sportsmanship is so much a key to it. And I wasn't as good as a sportsman as I was back then. Back then, if someone calls you something, you don't give it to them. You sit there and you yell and scream at each other.
Right.
Nowadays,
someone jars and they're the first to say it. Oh, I jarred you.
Or they'll at least listen to you explain it.
Yeah.
They'll explain their side. It wasn't like that back then, Yeah. You wouldn't give the ball up. I'm gonna get official, whatever. Go get official. I mean, like I said, we weren't friendly with them back then. In the '80s, with Americans.
Well, and there also the thing with the pro soccer was that there was a lot of in and outs.
Yes.
So there's arguments over that.
Oh yeah, that went in. No, it didn't.
And Mike Dickerson would call it from the 30 feet away. That was in. I heard it.
Okay. And speaking of some of the old players, they're outside now, waiting to come in. We're going to play a little foosball. But it's been great having this conversation with you, and with you, Peter, hearing some of the old times as well. So just for the cameras, let's do a handshake, guys. You can.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks very much. That's been great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm allowed to say how bad Tim sucks in this interview. At the end of the interview, we'll go 1, 2, 3, and all three will say, Tim sucks.
His name is Mitch Jang. Thought it was off, for fuck's sakes.